Hey everybody, welcome back inside another exciting episode of the Stash Report from the Stash Project. Today is September 2nd, 2019. It is Labor Day. So, for you folks here in the US of A, I hope you're having a great 3-day weekend. Won't have another one of these for, 2 months now. if that. If your job gives you Veterans Day off. I happen to have one that gives me like 6 holidays a year, Veterans Day not one of them, so I don't get another day off of work until Thanksgiving. Not that I'm complaining, just making a statement. So, in this video, we're going to cover the announcements for the All Japan Model and Hobby Show. That data dump, if you will, came out this week. So, we have all of the fourth quarter releases from Aoshima, Hasegawa, and also Tamiya. And then we have just sort of the regular run-of-the-mill announcements, like the October spot runs from Aoshima, Fujimi's November releases, and then we have some kit releases as well. Usually we split the All Japan hobby stuff off into its own show. This year, there's not necessarily quite so dramatic a compilation, if you will, of new stuff. A lot of it is like lightly modified reissues and things like that, which we'll get to in a second. So it's not like a whole, oh, we got to break out all of this, wildly new stuff that you've never seen before. And we probably will, depending again on coverage and photos and things like that. We may do a separate video when the show actually runs at the end of this month. But for right now, I figure I can cram everything into this video, and we'll see how that works. So let's cover the non-All Japan stuff first, which would be the spot runs from Aoshima for October. And they are going to be just a couple of things, not the big long list of cars that you normally expect them to do. They're going to rerun the Liberty Walks, Liberty Work Canterbury 4-door 2015 version, and then the 14-inch wheel sets and the Mark III Adven A3A Equip and Super Shark wheel sets, as well as the 16-inch wheel sets, the Watanabe, Longchamp XR4, Volk T37 of the P1 Racing. Now, those 16-inch wheel sets are the ones that come with the various Corolla and Levin kits that are out there. And the 14-inch wheel sets are some of those wheel sets that came from the Grand Champion Series. So those are just reissues of wheel sets that had already come out, a couple of months, 3 months ago at this point. And one other addition to the October runs from BMAX is a official release date for the 1/20th scale Brabham BT52B F1 car. So that has been added to the October releases in Japan, along with its detail upset, which is going to be seatbelt material, photo etch, as well as a couple of sheets of carbon fiber. So again, if you're into that level of detail in your carbon fiber decal work, picking up the detail upset will be worth it on that one for sure. And then we go over to Fujimi for November, and they are going to be reissuing, and this is just, there are no real kits here, just some random odds and ends. The Longchamp XR4 15-inch wheel set, their BBS 20-inch wheel set, something that's called Accessory Part, which is just sort of random odds and ends out of the Garage Series kits, as well as some of the other things that came in some of like the station wagon kits, like the camp chair, the big stuffed teddy bear, and just goofy things that you would have to buy like 5 or 6 kits to get the pieces to. So I could see the overall point of combining them all into one little box, but it's not exactly setting the world on fire. And then they have something that they're coming out with called a car model display set, which is going to be a piece of gray plastic about yay big, and it's going to have like pre-printed lines on it, and you're going to get some decals for like manhole covers and sewer grates and stuff like that. Essentially, it's just a streetscape and has a couple of Japanese signs, a guardrail, and it's just like a photo backdrop diorama based kind of thing. It's nothing that you would put your model on and leave it there unless you had a case to put over it. It's just, again, it's like a photo backdrop type of deal, and it's like $15, so it's not like it's anything really incredibly expensive, but it's not like the garage set where you would probably build your garage set put all the tools together and then leave it that way, more or less. You wouldn't constantly be taking things in and out of it, other than maybe the cars you would use for the photo backdrop. This is just a piece of plastic that looks like a piece of road. So, it's not the most original thing in the world. Italeri has one for a bigger one for like truck base things, to put out like a tractor size, European tractor, not as big as a U.S. tractor per se, but same sort of thing that they do. Except, of course, all their road signs are European in nature. And I think that covers all of this, like the normal run-of-the-mill stuff, as it were. So let's talk about the All Japan Model and Hobby Show. This is, again, going to be happening at the end of this month in Tokyo. It is the other big hobby show in Japan. There are a couple other little minor ones. One will be coming up towards the end of the year as well. But the Shizuoka show in May and this one in October are sort of the two big ones in Japan. Excuse me. And this will be all stuff pretty much in November and December, except for a couple of announcements from BMAX Nunu. They are going to be putting a couple of kits out. That one has, I think they both have November release dates attached to them at this point. And whether or not we'll actually get them by then is, of course, the question. BMAX right now, to put it in the most layman terms possible, has a lot of great ideas, but their pipeline is blocked up with corporate lawyers, meaning that a lot of their licensing is all just tied up in knots right now. I think I mentioned that in a recent video, but that continues to be their main issue, is getting things out the door, is getting things licensed by the one-to-one car manufacturers. So this also probably shows you a little indication, a little movement in the direction that they are going to be going as far as their distribution goes. These two kits were supposed to be BMAX Aoshima kits, and they are coming out underneath the Nunu Hobby Platts distributorship. They signed an agreement with Aoshima to be like a technical services type of agreement, along with a distribution agreement, where Aoshima came in and sort of gave them the wherewithal of how you set up molding and how to just, not so much how to do a model kit, but just to sort of provide oversight to make sure they were going in the right direction. And that agreement, I believe, from what I understand, is sort of winding itself down. BMAX, I know, is nonplussed at best from everybody constantly saying that their kits are made by Aoshima when they're not. Aoshima had a very heavy hand in a couple of kits, and they are the 120 scale F1 cars, which is why the Brabham is still coming out underneath the BMAX name with the Aoshima tie-in. But by and large, they're making their own stuff with their own staff. They have their own box art people now. They have their own decal people now, as far as drawing the decals. They're doing all the engineering, all the production and stuff like that is done in Macau. So it's I was recently approached by somebody connected to the company as to what distributors here in the United States and North America I would recommend they contact as far as distributing their kits directly from China into the United States, because right now they don't have a straight pathway. You have to go through a couple of people, and that's, of course, making their kits cost a little bit more than they'd like them to in the United States. And I'm all for getting them more coverage, as it were, in the United States. They make good quality kits, and I know price sensitivity in the U.S. market, to put it mildly, could certainly be a drag on sales. So the two Platts kits, or the two Nunu kits, as it were, one's going to be an all-new tool kit. Not a great big surprise. Both of these kits we've known about since back at Nuremberg, the Nuremberg Toy Fair. So they're not new. They're just being announced for order. And one is the BMW 3 Series, the E46. It is going to be done as a Dutch Touring Car Championship, which is kind of an odd choice, I would say, but it is a very famous logo for the E46 3 Series touring car, and that is the Marlboro car that ran in the Dutch Touring Car Championship. If you just look up like Marlboro BMW DTCC, you're going to get a bunch of pictures of it. It'll be interesting to see how they handle the Marlboro logos for that. Probably be in the photo etch, the way the Bastos and HB liveries for the rally cars, I would assume. If not, somebody will come up with Marlboro logos within like 2 weeks after it being released. And then the other one is a modified reissue, and it's the Porsche 935 Crema 3, representing the 1979 24 Hours of Le Mans winner. And that, of course, will also have its own photo etch set. That kit was supposed to come out, I believe, in October originally. And from talking to a few people, they are having a little bit of a go back and finagle the tooling a little bit. Some of the parts that convert from the K2 to the K3 didn't quite come out the way they wanted them to, so they went back to do a little tweaking, which is a good thing. I'm never one to complain about a kit being delayed because you want to make it as best as you can. Nothing's perfect, but the better, the better for everybody, really. So those are sort of the two outliers. Like I said, one's supposed to come out in October, one's supposed to come out in November. We'll see where those actually come out. Right now, they are not up for order anywhere in China, which is not exactly the end of the world because China usually right now I think their pre-orders are in the October range. So we'll see what happens with that. And beyond that, the actual meat and potatoes here. Tamiya in November is going to reissue their 1/12 scale, so that's a big scale, obviously. Porsche 934. I think it's a Group 4 race car with the Jägermeister livery. It's going to have photo etch in it. Beyond that, it's a kit from, I want to say that kit's from the 1970s or maybe the early 1980s. I have the 935 version of that, and I know that's from 1977. I think that the 934 is not too terribly older than that, or newer than that, rather. So that's going to come back out. One thing we don't have a release date for, but it is an official Tamiya kit. I looked at their All Japan Hobby Show stuff. Is they're going to do a 1/24 scale kit, and this is probably the most predictable thing that Tamiya has done recently, of the Toyota Supra. And this is going to be the Gazoo Racing trim. And it's very important to say trim because Gazoo Racing does put together a customer racing GT4 race car out of the Toyota Supra now. This is not going to be a race car. It's going to be a street car. We know nothing else about it in terms of it curbside, a little bit of an engine, full engine, whatever. There's really only been one Supra that Tamiya did that had the engine in it in the first place, so they could go either way and still be following a tradition. I would not exactly put money on having an engine, only because, of course, the Supra is a rebodied BMW Z4 for all intents and purposes, and I'm not sure, with licensing being what it is in 2019, if they would have to license the engine from BMW to put it into the model. Really, you probably have to license the interior because the interior that is very much a BMW Z4 with a Toyota steering wheel on it. But be that as it may, there is no official release date for that. I've seen, I think Hero Boy put it up for pre-order with a February release date on it. So probably first quarter 2020. Will be interesting to see if it shows up at all in a physical form at the toy show. The hobby show, rather, because that'll give you sort of an idea of how close it is to being done. If it's parts runners, is there a built test shot? Is it a built production shot? There's no way to pre-order it right now because pre-orders in Japan only go out to the end of the year right now. So, probably, if it's not actually at this show, there's a show in Osaka in like November, early December. It's a very small show, but a lot of the model manufacturers are going to sort of becoming sort of a third show or a second and a half show, if you will, at the end of the year. Hasegawa usually goes to it and announces a new tool for the first quarter of the year. Tamiya has been going, Aoshima has been going. So if it's not physically at this show, it'll probably be at that show towards the end of the year, and then you'll see it come up for pre-order later this year for next year. So if you're interested in that is coming. Again, probably a very predictable thing since there is a 1/10 RC car of it. There's a mini, the little mini RC car of it. So I think everybody pretty much expected Tamiya to do that. So it's not exactly a huge shock, but again, coming soon to a retailer near you in 2020. So Hasegawa then has some November releases that they're going to be doing. They're going to release their Toyota 88C with the Minolta number 38 car livery from the 1988 Le Mans. They've done the number 37 car in the past. I don't know why I couldn't just throw the 38 onto that decal sheet, but they're releasing a whole other kit for the 38 car. They're going to be reissuing their Nissan R9192 CP Group C car. It originally was an R92 CP, and then the reissue was an R91. This is going to be another reissue of the R91. It's going to have a new exhaust system and a new rear deck lid to change it to IMSA GTP spec. And this is going to be representing the 1992 Daytona 24 Hours winner in IMSA GTP. So another sort of nod, if you will, towards expanding into the U.S. market after the couple left-hand drive 240Zs. They're going to reissue another version of their Toyota Starlet, and this is going to be the SI Limited version. This is going to have a plethora of new parts. There's several, we'll probably have 2 parts runners worth of interior stuff for this. There's a bunch of exterior stuff for this, new wheels. It's going to be molded in black, which I know a lot of people aren't going to necessarily be a huge fan of, but the SI Limited, as it stood when it was released, was a black over silver two-tone. So that is why it's molded in black. Molding it in silver would be kind of silly because the silver part's just along the bottom of the car. But that particular car came in a black and silver two-tone. Now, it came in other versions over the course of the years that the SI Limited existed, but when it was released, which is what, of course, Hasegawa was making a model of, it was a black and silver car only. And then a couple of just straight reissues in November as well for the Toyota Celica 1600 GT. And this is going to be what they call the genuine aluminum wheel version, which is the one that has factory stock wheels. The regular Hasegawa 1600 GT has just a set of Watanabes in it, and then a reissue of the Suzuki Jimny rather in the JA111 version, which was the first version of the Jimny when it was released a couple of years ago. Then we go over to December when we get Aoshima's releases from the hobby show. They're going to do a Urace Type R Nissan Skyline R34 4-door. This is not the Urace that you're thinking of, which is the old D1 Grand Prix kit that they've reissued a couple thousand times. This is going to be based on the new tool R34 Mordor. And the Type R is a different body kit than the GTS T that they did for the version for the D1 Grand Prix. It's also a different year, 01 versus I think the other one's an 02. Which I realize is not that big of a deal, but I mean, it's not the same year. So it's like new wheels, new body kit, obviously. The reason we could do this Type R is the front fenders sort of have a flare out near the front doors with a faux vent in it, kind of like the way the BMW M6 is, if you're familiar with that body at all. And obviously that would require putting new side pieces into a body tool, unless your front fender and front clip is completely separate from your model, the way the R34 Mordor new tool is set up. So that'll be coming out. That's probably the most affected model kit of the things that they're doing as far as adding new parts to it. They're going to reissue the 2015 Mitsubishi Evo 10 in its Evo 10 and Final Edition version in one box. Those were 2 separate kits in the past. Primarily, that's a decal and wheel thing. The Final Edition had BBS wheels. The regular Evo 10 just has, Evo 10 wheels. And they're tooling up new side repeaters for the mirrors. In the kit as it stands, those are just decals. So the side mirrors are going to be new in that. I don't understand why they didn't do that back in 2014 when that kit came out, but be that as it may. They're going to be reissuing their 2007 Toyota Hiace, which is, of course, the full-size van, in what is known as a police accident processing vehicle. Now, you have no idea what that means, so I'm going to show you a picture of a real one. And so this is going to have a whole bunch of parts added to it, obviously, because the Hiace is just what it is. It's going to have new wheels. That it's going to have a new side window. That window has like a small window in it that doesn't obviously exist in the regular kit. A new front mirror. There's a different style front mirror on that. And of course, all the police stuff, including that big, gigantic light bar mount. Obviously, that's to raise the light bar above traffic. There's certain places, NYPD, Nassau County, probably the two most prominent examples, although I think Palm Beach County down in Florida has a couple of them that have high-rise. I think Toronto, Montreal as well, from our Canadian friends, have those high-rise light bars that they can raise up in the air so that you can see the light bars over traffic. Same sort of principle there. That's kind of a really oddly unique thing. That's not for everybody, but I would guarantee if you bought one, build it, you'd be the only one at your club with one. And then possibly the most interesting reissue out of everything, and possibly, for if you're looking specifically for this kit, possibly more interesting than anything else that's coming out this whole fourth quarter, is the fact that Aoshima rather is going to reissue their 1992 Land Rover Range Rover Classic. Yes. See, I give myself a little pat on the back for this one. I didn't know this was actually coming, but I just told you guys, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Oh, with Revell doing a new Land Rover and Italeri reissuing their two-door 80s car and their two-door 70s Land Rover, it would be a really good time for Aoshima to go after the folks at Land Rover for a licensing for this to reissue it. And they have. And licensing, by the way, along with the fact that there was some screw up with the clear parts runners. They've not said what it is, whether it was damaged or it's just wore out or maybe it's missing entirely, because there was a run of this kit done for Revell of Germany at some point, and I don't know if the tooling was sent to Poland for that or if Aoshima ran it and then sent the bag kits, which would make more sense in the long run. But those were the freewheeling days of the 80s and 90s, and all sorts of things happened back then before, tooling preservation was what it is today, where you just, you have to have 3 or 4 versions of whatever this is out of this tooling and whatnot. But it's great to have this kit come back. The prices for them are, even in Japan, are a little high. Here in the United States, they're exorbitant if you don't have somebody who just wants to get rid of one. It's one of those, I'm going to retire on this kit. Not anymore, you're not, because it's going to be $25.44. There are a couple of resin trans kits for this that exist already from Dialex to convert it into a left-hand drive, 1993, as well as the 1995 Brookwoods version, which is slightly different front and rear bumpers. I think there's a different set of wheels in that, and then an airbag steering wheel, which of course the 92 one doesn't have. So for everyone who, and you're welcome because I bought one for about $45. Everybody who's been wanting one of these, especially to pull your Brian James transport trailer, yes, you finally get one. So I'm going to pick a couple up just to have, and that's very exciting to see come back. And then they are going to be restarting their supercar series, which, if you know anything about it, is all of these Lamborghinis, right? And then the Panganis. I don't understand why we're restarting this. I don't know why we're renumbering it, but it makes sense to somebody somewhere. So the 2 cars in the new supercar series are going to be a reissue of the Lamborghini Countach LP400 in its photo etch set, and a reissue of the 2012 Pagani Huayra in its photo etch set. So, yeah, I mean, there's no real reason to pick those up because you probably have one already, but for people who don't, I guess, it'll be coming out probably with some new box art attached to it. Still not exactly sure what the point is, but again, it must make sense to somebody. And then lastly, for the show stuff here, we have the Hasegawa releases for the month of December, and they are going to be the Lamborghini Miura Super Veloce, and this is going to have a resin Italian girl figure added to it. So the girl figure thing continues to be a thing at Hasegawa. So yeah, Italian girl. Don't know exactly how you sculpt one of those exactly, but be that as it may. Gonna get a reissue of the Nissan Sunny pickup truck with a resin chin spoiler. So another one of these nth degree variants. Obviously, they're not modifying the kit. They're putting a resin piece in for the chin spoiler. Otherwise, it's going to be just a reissue of, I think, the earliest version of that car, of that truck, rather. They're going to, I don't know that they've done this kit before. I have to do a little more research on it, but they're going to reissue their Lola T9050 124 scale Formula 3000 car as a Paul Stewart Racing. Now, that's a Labatt's car. And all of the photos of the built production shot have Labatt's decals on them. So it'll be very interesting to see if this really does have Labatt's decals in it when it actually comes out, because, oh my god, evil alcohol. And that's going to be, instead of just a Japanese Formula 3000, it's going to be the world Formula 3000, which was the series that ran outside of Japan, obviously ran in Europe. So I'd be interested to see if they're going to do if that's something they've done before. Again, I haven't looked, or if they're going to be expanding those Formula 3000 kits with new liveries out into the broader Formula 3000 world. So there's that. Reissue of the Volkswagen Tip 2 van with the Steampunk Egg Girls. Oh, it has been forever since we've gotten an Egg Plane Girls decaled up version of a Volkswagen, and finally your requests have been made. They're doing another one of those. So yeah. Okay. They're going to reissue the 66 Thunderbird. If you're thinking, wait, didn't that already come out? Yes, you're right, it did, but it didn't have a figure with it the last time. So yes, another resin bikini girl added to a kit that was just reissued like 9 months ago, maybe. I kind of, it's one of those things where it's sold. Oh my God, we need to put them in everything, and I realized that. But at the same time, nobody had this idea originally. Like, we should just put the resin girls in them to begin with, and then you wouldn't have to reissue them a second time within the same year. But yeah, if you didn't get the Thunderbird the first time around because you were being like, nah, ain't got no resin girl, well, we fixed that for you. Reissue of the Nissan Skyline R31, the new tool kit. This is going to be a GTS-X, which is the original first version of the R31. This is going to have new wheels and some new interior pieces in it to convert it, so that will be coming back out for you fans of that. And then lastly, we have, as far as the new tool stuff, we have 3 reissue stuff here, but the last of the significant things, and it is a brand new tool. And it's not a Mitsubishi Lancer, which was what they showed at Shizuoka as being the next new tool, but it is in fact a Nissan Bluebird Triple S, the U12 generation of this, which is like 1989 to 1992, a Tessa, which is the all-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive version of this car. Now, if you're going, what the hell is a Nissan Bluebird? It looks like this. We got this here as the Nissan Stanza, of all things. I don't believe, I could be just way off base. I don't necessarily believe we're going to get a left-hand drive Stanza version of this, per se. I would not at all be surprised to see a SSSR of this in 2020, which is the basically factory rally version of this car. It is, by some measures, the most rally-ready car you could buy at a dealership in history. It even came with great big spotlights mounted on the front bumper. And it'd be very interesting to see if that comes. It has to be coming. I would almost believe that the entire reason that this kit is being done in the first place is to do this rally version of it, and the factory rally version of it. I don't know if they're going to do an actual rally version of it, but to do this factory rally car, because the factory rally car is what the Tessa 4-wheel drive system was made for in the first place, let alone just the regular, pedestrian street car. So, yeah, I would expect to see that sometime in 2020. Probably by summer, I would imagine. They usually try to kick out the new tool and then a version of the new tool within the same 6-month span. We're seeing that the Starlet came out this summer, and now we're getting the next version of it in the fall. So yeah, that's cool, very cool. The street car itself, the little pedestrian 4-door. Hey, who doesn't need a pedestrian 4-door Nissan sedan in the first place? But that rally version is certainly something that piques my interest. Not so much the rally version, but the street rally version. And then 3 last kits we're going to talk about here. Just reissues. They're reissuing the 66, although it's a 65, Impala with its Resin Girl figure. They're reissuing the Mazda 767B charged liveried Le Mans car, which is the one before the Tamiya 787. And their version of the Sauber Mercedes C9 World Sports Car Prototype Series cars. So that, guys, is what to expect this fall. You notice there's no Pagani, early Pagani in there. I don't know where that went. That just sort of evaporated from being shown at Nuremberg and saying it was a 2019 kit. I'm very interested to see what else BMAX Nunu will be bringing to the show itself. In terms of the actual, coming next stuff. Because if this was October and November, there should be some sort of December release as well. And we've talked about it before, where BMAX's idea is to have a kit come out every month. New tool reissue, new tool reissue, new tool reissue kind of thing. They do have like a European market specific Lancia Delta S4 that they're going to do. I'm not sure when that's supposed to be coming out exactly because it's European, so the release dates are for over there. Um, but I don't necessarily believe that counts. Just like the China-specific Macau M6 Charlie Lamb Memorial Edition doesn't necessarily count into the regular kits as either. So, interested to see what their idea for having a December kit would be. It should be um, another modified reissue based on the way the kits are set up. There's certainly several things to choose from in that realm. Depends what they can get licensing for before the end of the year, and then, like I said, see what their new stuff is. So, one last tease, not necessarily related to the All Japan Model and Hobby Show, is the fact that we got this announcement from Belkits. It is another licensing saga coming to an end. After several years, they have finally gotten permission from Hyundai to do a i20 rally car. This was something that was supposed to come out, or was in discussions about being released probably, a couple, 3 years ago at this point. They're going to be doing the 2019 Tour de Course version of this car. No word on any kind of release date for this, and it'd be interesting to see how quickly this comes along in terms of its release. If this is something that Belkis had pretty much done, but never got the licensing approval for until now, or if this is starting from scratch, because then we're talking about the middle of next year. It's kind of odd to do a 2019 car, then not release it for like 9 months to a year. But again, how much of the actual behind the scenes design, tooling, and things like that, like if the design, if everything is done and tooling was just never cut because you're not going to spend that money until you can actually do something, then you could just send the files out to China and have them start cutting tooling, and maybe you could have the kit out in like 5 to 6 months. If they start from scratch, well, then it's going to be a couple more months on top of that before they do the design, and then you're going to get the test shots back and adjust the tooling, and there's all that kind of stuff. But very, very interesting to see this come out. I feel bad for the guys over at V Modeler because they just released like $170 some odd or something around that multimedia resin kit of the exact same car. If you want one and you're not willing to wait, that's probably the best way to get one. I hope he sold enough of them in the initial 2 weeks before this announcement was made to make that project worthwhile. But that's sort of the way the cookie crumbles. You buy an expensive thing, or you make an expensive thing, and then immediately, it's the best idea that a kit manufacturer has ever had ever. So it's just the life, as it were. So let's talk about kit releases, because we have a whole bunch. Over here on the domestic side of things, we have the last 2 kits out of round 2 for the month of August. And they are the Big Rig Semi-Trailer. Yes, it is a reissue of the 1960-something IMC Semi-Trailer. I don't believe this thing is patterned after a single ding-dong thing, as far as being a specifically manufactured trailer. It does look like a 1960s trailer, in so much as it has the little metal wheels on the dolly landing. I don't know. The idea was you could hook a trailer up to it and drag it around without putting the landing gear up, but that didn't really end up working out that well in the long run. You can build this sort of like in 2 different ways, because the way this kit is designed, there's 2 pieces of floor panel, 2 pieces of side panel, 2 pieces of roof panel, to make the 35-foot long-ish trailer that you see on the box art. You can also build this as a single axle, like 17-foot pup trailer, what they call a city delivery trailer. I've seen some people actually ask for this, and they didn't want to buy the Lindbergh kit that has the Dodge tractor attached to it. So, good for you guys, I guess. There's so many other period semi-trailers. I don't see the point of this. This is a nostalgia piece right here, which is you think you remember it being cool, and then you get it home and it's not. So anyway, that's back out. Also from round 2 is this, the 1923 T Roadster. So this is the first time this kit has been reissued in this variant since the 1970s. It obviously, you can build a stock 1923 Model T out of this, or you can build this wild custom 1970s style Roadster out of it as well. We've got pad printed tires in it, so adding that, new decals, that whole 9 yards. Um, is what it is. This the guts of this have been reissued already, uh, so there's just a specific sort of secondary version of it at this point. And then we have one Revell kit for. Technically, this would be a September kit because it came in after September, and that is the reissue of this 1986 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS 2-in-1. I'm assuming the N1 here is the fact that this kit originally came with like a set of center line-ish wheels as an optional wheel package for this. Also, I believe it came with like a tuned port injection, sort of Corvette style induction for the 305 as well. I believe the stripes are going to be a couple different colors as far as the SS stripes, so you don't have to just build a black one with gold ones. Obviously, it's a white car on the box art. You got some, overhead stripes or hood and deck stripes shown on the box art as well for the alternate version. So I know a lot of people were anxious to have this back. They were getting kind of pricey, especially if you didn't want to buy the donkey version of it. So that's back out, and we'll see how long it takes to get the Buick Grand National after that. And then we go overseas, where we have a couple 3 releases from mostly Aoshima, although there's a Hasegawa and a Fujimi in here. Hasegawa's last kit, I already said there was the last kit in the last video, but I was wrong. There was one last kit. And that's the final 1966 car to be reissued, the Pontiac Bonneville, with the blonde girl figure in resin. She is going to be leaving a slug trail on your freshly polished hood in that outfit. Wow. People have a very interesting idea of what United States women look like in Japan. I think maybe it's just the nature of the beast, as it were, or they assume that every single American woman is a stripper. But be that as it may, we would expect out of these 66 kits. They're sort of backdated, reverse engineered versions of domestic kits from the time. I'm assuming the 66 Bonneville would have been patterned off the AMT kit back then. It is not the actual AMT kit, of course. You'll find that out if you try to put AMT parts into it. It's not quite the same. Same generic chassis, same sort of generic interior that goes on with these. So that is back out, and that, I believe, is all of the 1966 tool kits that exist at this point. Again, we'll be getting the Cadillac back out in I think, October, and then the Thunderbird comes back out in November or December with its Resin Girl added to it. So, figures, all the figures. And then we go to Fujimi, which had one more wheel set for the month of August that I missed when I was checking things off the list. And it's a set of 17-inch BBS wheels. The front lip is separate, so you can't paint it red like this. In the original literature, it showed that it was going to be molded in red, but it is not. The whole thing is molded in sort of a silver color. So you can certainly do whatever you want to with that, chrome the lip or paint the lip a color, whatever the case may be. But that's back out. Of course, does have a set of tires with it. And then one of the sort of many kits that are being sort of just straight reissued for August and September was this. It is their version of the Nissan Fairlady Z 432R. This is the homogenization version of the Z for the rally car. This kit does have a engine. Actually, it has 2 of them. It has the factory stock 240Z engine, and then it has the engine out of the 1971 GTR as well, because the rally car ran the race car ran that engine rather than the factory stock inline. So you do get 2 engines with this. I think there's a couple sets of wheels in it as well. The only sort of caveat or downside to this kit is it doesn't have really kind of any engine bay detail to it. I mean, you can cut the hood off, put the engine in, but it doesn't really, look quite right unless you do a little bit of scratch building to sort of flush out the engine bay. And then we go over to Aoshima, which has a few things. First up, we have a straight reissue of this, the Advan version of the Liberty Walk R35, Type 2 version 2. Just it sold out within 2 or 3 weeks after it was released, so just a rerun. And then we have this kit, which is a reissue of a 1/20th scale set of kits. These, I believe, again, are Nichimo in their origin. Is a Suzuki Alto, Suzuki Servo. I would love to have that servo in 1/24 scale. I mean, I already have an Alto, although I think this Alto is older than the Alto that I already have. Just because. I just love me some goofy Japanese cars. And these are not necessarily just goofy Japanese cars, but they are goofy Japanese cars. I don't mean to make that sound disparaging, but, you know, that servo, I don't know. I don't even know what that it looks like. I don't like a Chevette and a Saab and maybe a Dodge Omni had a three-way love child, and that was the result of it. And you know, these are very, very basic kits. They were motorized toys back in the day. They're from like the 1970s, so don't expect anything great. Again, 1/20th scale, so they're not going to exactly fit in with everything else. But it's been a long time since this kit's been either one of these because they were separate kits back in the day. But they basically ride on the same sort of chassis platform and things like that. Two different bodies, obviously, and the rest of that stuff. You only build one, not both, but, you know, it's back out. And then the last kit from Aoshima is their brand new tool from the Shizuka show. So this will catch Aoshima up with their Shizuka show stuff. And it is the NTP10 Japanese taxis. So these are, as it turns out, some very, very, very basic curb size. Now, we knew that going in that they were sort of designed to be simpler kits, but they are really basic. These things are maybe 45 parts, if that. Everything is molded into the chassis. Both axles are metal. Parts of the interior, the seats and that are molded. It's a bucket rather than having like separate side panels. The big caveat to this thing is the fact that the side door can be posed open or closed. I guess that's cool. There's this white one, and then there is this black one, and the black one has a different set of wheels in it, and that's literally the only difference between the two of them. I bought one because, again, actually I didn't buy one. Much to my chagrin, I didn't pre-order one of these because by the time I got around to it, Hobby Link Japan was on order stop, and now they're on back order. But I would get the black one if I was going to buy one, just because I like the set of wheels better. And yeah, it's incredibly basic. It's really pretty decently detailed. Like, there's a lot of Fujimi kits that are very basic and have really intricately detailed chassis for what they are. This is sort of the same thing. There's an entire section of the first page of the instructions dedicated on how to paint the chassis, all of its many different colors. It's going to be a masking nightmare to do what they ask you to do to it if you wanted to make it, really super nice. There's a bunch of decals for the interior, for all the taxi meters and stuff like that. Like, overall, it's a pretty decent little oddball thing. It's just a little bit more basic than I was necessarily expecting out of it, because we've never really saw good parts runners for this. It was like, here's an idea, here's some prototypes of it, and then it ran a month late and it came out, and this is sort of the end result. So again, like I said, not bad, just not exactly what I was expecting. Like I said, there's literally like some brake discs that go like attached to the side of the chassis, much like the C7R and the Ford GT do, as far as attaching the wheel hubs to the chassis, and then metal axles hold the wheels on, and that is it. There's no separate exhaust, there's no separate suspension components. But I understand trying to keep the cost down, because what else are you gonna do with this, right? It's a Japanese taxi, and it's a Japanese taxi. It's not like 8 versions of that you're gonna do. There's no touring version of that. There's no rally version of that. So anyway, guys, that wraps up this one. It's a little longer than normal, but we covered the hobby show in the beginning. Hope you hung out for the whole thing and you got to see all the kit releases. You didn't tap out and going, ugh, Japanese kit, ugh. And because if you didn't, then you don't know the Monte Carlo got reissued. Anyway, hope everybody had a great Labor Day weekend. The end of the summer, we're finally going to have looks like some nice, cool, good sleeping weather, as we call it here in Pennsylvania, where it's down in the 50s at night. And hope everybody had a good summer. Pretty decent one here. And yeah, that does it for this one, guys. We'll see you guys on the other side.